Okay, hello. Quick warning. If you are in a hotel, don't panic. You'll be fine. I promise. Well, actually, I can't promise. I'd like to promise, but then the man in this story, he changed all of that. But try not to panic. And just before I go, Shouty Man has been in touch. He was out at karaoke over the past few days. He's lost his voice, so won't be making an appearance this week. I am very curious about everything and everyone I see. And so I have felt invisible also. As a child feels himself invisible beneath the radar of adult supervision. The consequence of so much unsupervised freedom was that I became precociously independent. You know that feeling you get sometimes when you just think someone is watching you? Like you can feel a pair of eyes across the room and you're just aware you're being watched. It's weird, isn't it? It's unsettling. What if your entire life was about watching? What if the things you saw were private and shocking? Where are you right now? As you listen to this, where are you? Do you think you're safe? Do you think you're alone? Is there any chance someone could be watching? Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. So here we are, my friends. Another day, another story, another chance with this one to get into what makes people who they are, what makes people weird, or what we think is weird, and what makes people tick. Alright, I'm just going to do some quick shout outs and then we'll get on with the story. Alright. Straight away, oh my god, I've made such a massive mistake. Honestly, I mean, I know I joke about like I love an interesting name, but sometimes I just get things wrong, and honestly, I have literally just been a complete and utter baboon's arse in this situation. So, on the last episode, well, I think it was the last episode, yeah, I think it was the last one, I sang a happy birthday message to Tina only for the person I sang the message to get in touch and say thanks very much for the birthday message, but actually my name is Tia. Oh my god. I literally wanted to just slap myself in the face and be like, are you a fucking idiot? So, Tia, I am so sorry that I read it as Tina. My apologies, because I really care and I want to get these things right, and I got that wrong. But anyway, I hope that you had a nice birthday, even though I sang the wrong name in the birthday song. Oh, right. Hello to Catherine Karcher. Hello, Catherine. How are you? Andrea Taylor. Now I'm saying Andrea Taylor, but it might be like Andrea. I don't know what you go for there, but hello, how are you? This next one, oh, what a name. I'll probably have got this wrong as well, so please do feel free to get in touch. I want to say it's Jania Searle. Notice how what I tried to do there was go Jania. I tried to say it in like in like some sort of like accent that made it sound like I knew what I was saying. So Jania, get in touch if it's wrong. Hello, Suzanne Russell. Hey Suzanne, how are you? This next name, brilliant. Athena Goldberg. Yes! What a name! That is amazing. Love it. Athena Goldberg. Are you a relation of Whoopi? That was my first thing. Are you Whoopi's secret niece? That's what I want to know. Hello to Shelley Monder. Shelley, you got in touch because you listen while you work to the podcast, and I'm glad that it helps you when you listen to the podcast and doing your work. Hello to Emma Scarpetta. Again, I've done that thing where I just hope by saying it in an accent that it vaguely sounds okay. Emma Scarpetta, who sent me the most gorgeous message to say that she appreciates the podcast and she appreciates the time that's spent on it. And I, Emma, appreciate your ears. So thanks for listening. Alright, Kate Schambarger. Are you all just having a wind up here, right? Are you all just having a big massive laugh and it's like, let's just send Barry lots of names that he cannot say, right? I'm sure you're not. Kate Schambarger, who's in California but is from Scotland, and Greg, who's in Tennessee, who is Kate's friend, and they listen to the podcast. Well, hello Kate, and hello Greg. Lovely to have the pair of you listening. Grace Lettuce, I'm sure it's lettuce. Grace Lettuce Ballard. Hello Grace, thank you for listening. And lastly to Kerry Morgan. Kerry Morgan, you are going through some tough times at the moment, and I hope that you make your way through it. Okay, alright, that's the end of the shout outs. Let's get on with the story. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. Okay, so we've all at some point in our life checked into a hotel. Well, I assume that we have. Now we all know the process. Fine. I'm sure we've all stayed at some time in our life in some very memorable hotels, some crazy little places. Do you know, just sometimes you go to a hotel and you're like, this is a weird little world that I am in right now. But sometimes I think what's good about that is you kind of just take it as part of your holiday or the trip that you're on, don't you? You just go, well, there's a slightly weird feeling in this hotel, but you know what? I'm just going to take it as part of where I am right now. I stayed in a hotel in Paris. I swear, the whole entire thing, right, it was on the weirdest slope. It was like it had been built on like a hill that was falling down. It was honestly, it was so weird. Everything just leaned to one side. You had to constantly be like, I better just hold on to the edge of the bed frame lest I smash into the wall. It was really this little like strange place. Okay, well, let's go to Denver in America in the 1940s. The Foos family, Foo as in the Foo Fighters, are a hard-working family, and they're originally of German descent. They have a son, and they call him Gerald. So, Gerald, how does he describe his family life growing up? Well, he will say it was a perfectly lovely upbringing. There were no real problems in the family. Of his mum and dad, he will say they were hardworking, they were generous, they were good people, and as a family, they were like a really close family, but there was one thing that they didn't ever discuss, and that was sex. They just didn't talk about it. As a family, they just didn't talk about it. And Gerald kind of went through growing up almost in a way as if his parents pretended sex didn't exist. You know, it was like almost this kind of like, we don't talk about it and it's not there, and it's not a thing. It's not a thing that we need to ever be thinking about. I mean, that's not really that uncommon, is it? I don't think so. I mean, well, today, here we are in 2020, there'll be lots of families who don't really discuss sex because it's awkward, it's difficult, I love talking about sex, I could talk about it all day long, but some families just won't entertain it, they just won't talk about it. Now, this was kind of the 40s time, and so maybe, yeah, it was difficult to talk about. So, as a young man trying to learn about sex, well, the only real way that Gerald could do it was from the nearby farmyard animals and sort of watching them and seeing what they do. That was really about his only kind of way of seeing any sort of form of sex was animals. So he didn't really know anything much outside of that. Now, this next bit, it's creepy. It is creepy, very creepy, but it's necessary to know. At about age 10, Gerald begins to develop a weird fascination with his aunt. His Aunt Catherine, she lives nearby to the house that he's growing up in. And Gerald, 10 years old, realises that if he sneaks into her garden at a certain time in the evening, he can watch her through her bedroom window and see her naked. Okay, weird. This really should be a massive warning sign of what's about to come for Gerald. So for a good few years, he watches his aunt as she undresses in her bedroom and she walks around naked. He just sort of stares through the window at her for hours and hours, and she has zero idea that he is there. So he goes to school, he goes to high school, and he meets a woman called Donna. And him and Donna, they date, they fall in love, and they decide that they want to, at some point, get engaged, they want to get married, they want to live together, and that's fine. So what sort of happens here is, as they graduate from school, Gerald goes to spend a couple of years in the Navy, and Donna goes to spend a couple of years training as a nurse, and then once that's done, once his Navy training is done, once her nursing training is done, the two of them, they get back together and they get married. They get married in a place called Aurora in Denver. I hope that's the right way to say it. Aurora? Arara. Well, something like that. Aurora, right? That's what we'll call it. So once he's out of the Navy, Gerald has, well, I mean, this is what he says about it, a really boring job in an office. He's an auditor. I don't really know what an auditor is, but that's what he is. I mean, don't get me wrong, that might be, he's saying it's boring, that might be someone's dream job. Maybe someone out there listening right now is like, oh my god, all I've ever wanted to be is an auditor. Well, good luck to you, if that's what you want. So, he's married. Him and Donna, they're just living their kind of married life. She's still working as a nurse. But for Gerald, he can't shake the thought of the excitement that he used to get when he watched his aunt without her knowing about it. He keeps thinking back to that, being 10 years old and being able to watch his aunt take her clothes off and walk around a room with no clothes on. And he starts thinking, what can he do about that? So this is what he does. He begins to sneak out late at night from him and Donna's home. And he goes around the neighbourhood and he watches for people having sex. He starts to get to know the houses in the neighbourhood where people are not so good at remembering to close their blinds or shut the curtains. And he would go to the most extraordinary lengths to just watch people through their bedroom windows, or watch them have sex in their living rooms, or wherever they were having sex in the house. He would position himself in a way that he would never be seen, but he had a very clear view of them. Creepy. Now, he's a married man at this point, but this is his nighttime hobby. This is what he absolutely fucking loves doing. So, this goes on for months. This watching and watching people. Now, he's not always alone when he's watching. Sometimes his wife Donna comes with him. You see, Gerald is very open to Donna about the fact that he likes watching other people have sex. So night after night, he's going out into the neighbourhood. So if you're thinking at this point, and I would completely agree with you, if you're thinking, oh God, I would really not want a Gerald in my neighbourhood, it's actually what Gerald does next that might change your mind, and maybe you wish he'd kind of stayed the neighbourhood peeping Tom. As I said, Gerald was so bored of his job, totally bored of it, totally over it, and he suggests to his wife Donna that he makes a career move. He wants to get into hospitality. He wants to make a move from boring office into running an organisation or running a business. And what he really wants, how many more times can I say really wants? I'll tell you what he wants, what he really wants. I'll tell you what he wants, what he really wants is this. He wants to own a motel. And he has seen the very bad boy that he would love to own. Now, it's in Aurora, where they live. It has 21 bedrooms, and it's for sale. It's called the Manor House Motel. I don't know how it's even possible, but it almost immediately the name of that is creepy. You go, Manor House Motel. I don't know. Something about that just gives me the willies. Straight away. I don't know. Something odd. Anyway, he takes this idea to Donna. He would like to buy the motel. And she's like, yeah, I do want to do that. And I support that you want a business, but I don't really want to give up our home. And he's like, look, we can make this work. Here's the thing. We move into the motel, we live there, and, after a few months, we can buy another property. I just need a bit of time to make some money. Donna eventually agrees, and Gerald is delighted. Absolutely fucking delighted, because Gerald has a plan. He has a major plan for this motel. This is going to be less of your average side of the road motel and more of the site for his more of a site for Gerald's research. Yeah, okay. That's the best word. Let's call it his research. So Gerald and Donna, they get the motel. And, well, just to give you a quick description, it's all on one level. There's 21 bedrooms, as I said. And there's a sort of small reception as you come in. It's quite near the highway, so I think previously it's done some quite good business. So the deal is that Donna is going to stay working as a nurse, and Gerald is going to be the man who runs the motel. What they do is they move into the manager's quarters of the hotel, and that's where they live now. So they start to decorate it to their taste. They start to get the rooms ready for guest bookings. They put up a neon sign, and the motel is almost ready to take its guests under Gerald's watch. And I say under Gerald's watch very deliberately. Over a month-long period, just before they open up, Gerald has some fixing up of the hotel to do, and he needs Donna's help. In a number of the bedrooms, carefully selected by Gerald, he installs air vents, which are about 6 inches by 14 inches. Now, the position of these air vents was chosen so carefully by Gerald because they weren't in any way air vents. They were made to look like air vents, but actually what they are is little windows into the rooms where Gerald could get a view of the room and the guests and their beds. Donna helped him to do this, to make sure he would never be seen. So what would happen is they would go round room by room, and he would choose where did he want the fake air vent that if you were a guest in that hotel, you would literally just look up and think, well, that's it. You might not even notice it, but if you did notice it, you'd think, oh, it's just a little ventilation thing up in the ceiling of the hotel room. But no, it wasn't. It was just made to look like that. And so what would happen is he would go up to where he wanted it, he would cut the hole out, he would put the fake ventilation grills onto it, and he would get Donna to go in to the bedroom, and he would get her to walk around the bedroom so that he could make sure he had a good view. He would then say to his wife, right, lie on the bed, make sure that I can see you lying on the bed. And then he would say to her, right, if you look up and you glanced up into that air vent, can you see me? And if she said yes, then things would have to move about and shift so that he was in a position where he could see everything going on in that hotel room, but never actually be seen himself. Okay then, sure, Fuck me. Fuck me, that's a lot of work. Oh, God. It's creepy, eh? So where is Gerald watching from? Well, he's watching from the attic. Now, the attic is massive and it stretches over the whole length of the floor above the hotel rooms. Like I said, all the hotel rooms are on one floor, so they're all on the one level. He is the level above. And what he does is he gets the attic carpeted with like a thick carpet. So thick that he can walk about and there isn't a single chance that a creak can be heard or a noise can be heard going in to the rooms below. And so, Gerald's research, as he calls it, begins. Once the motel is open for business, the guests start to arrive, and he starts to put them very, very deliberately into certain rooms in the motel based on just looking at them and guessing what kind of people they might be. What kind of people they might be in a supposedly private hotel room. But I'm a creep, I'm a widow. What the hell am I doing here? I bet that's the song going round in his head. Voyeurism, eh? It's so interesting. I mean, it's like everything, right? There's levels of voyeurism. Of course there's others. They can't just be one level. And I don't think it's always about sex. Yes, it is in this case. But I don't think it's always about that. It sort of just gets that idea attached to it. But there's plenty of people in the world who just like to watch people. I like to watch people. Oh my God, I bloody love it. I bloody love watching people and listening to people. I adore my life. I am not kidding. I adore my life, right? When I walk into a room and there is a hushed conversation going on, I literally freeze like this. Oh yeah, podcast, you can't see me freezing, but imagine me right now freezing. And I'm listening all the time. I'm listening. I'm like, what's she saying to him? What's he saying? What? I missed that bit. Damn it. Fucking damn it. Missed that bit. What's she saying? Oh, interesting. So, I mean, there's a little, we've all got a little level of that in us. I mean, I don't know, maybe people don't take it to the lengths that I take it to, which is, like, for example, sometimes I pretend to be listening to something in my headphones. So I'll, like, have my headphones connected to my phone on, like, a bus or on the street and whatever, and I'm literally pretending that I'm listening to something, but actually what I'm doing is listening to the conversation of the person next to me. Yeah, but anyway, So Gerald has exactly what he wants. And so in December 1966, he begins his research project. He starts to put that into practice. He will watch guests for hours from his attic. He gets this absolutely perfect view into their hotel rooms. Gerald says the reason for purchasing this motel was to satisfy my voyeuristic tendencies and compelling interest in all phases of how people conduct their lives, both socially and sexually. I did this purely out of my unlimited curiosity about people. I'm not just a deranged voyeur. Well, I think there's room to argue that. He writes about his first ever watching experience in the motel. He describes a Mr. and Mrs. W of Colorado. The man's 35. He says the woman, he thinks she's about 33. They come in, they take a room, and he runs up to his little viewing platform. He says it was tremendous seeing my very first subjects for my initial observations. They entered the room. It was clear they had no idea they were being watched. I had a feeling of tremendous power and exhilaration at my accomplishment. He says what was disappointing is that they lay on the bed, they watched a film until 8:30 that evening. Finally, she undressed, and she revealed herself to be a beautiful, slightly plump but sexually attractive woman. He appeared disinterested. He lay on the bed and he smoked a cigarette next to her. After he kissed her and fondled her, he quickly gained an erection and he entered her in the male superior position. There was no foreplay, and within 5 minutes he had orgasmed. She did not orgasm. He got up and went to the bathroom. In his notes, Gerald writes, "My conclusion: they are not a happy couple. He is too concerned about getting into the right position, and he doesn't have time for her. He is ignorant of sexual procedure and foreplay. This is an undistinguished and quite boring observation for me. But I am certain that from my watching position, things will improve." Imagine actually somebody like watching you have sex and writing about it in those terms. Fucking weird, isn't it? It's like really weird. Like, it's just so odd. There's a real like clinical kind of like animalistic sort of weird way of looking at it. Anyway. But what I'm saying is, right now, if you are in a hotel room, just go and wave at the air vent. Be like, "Cooey! Hello! Can you see me?" Well, what does Gerald begin to see in the rooms that he's watching? He begins to keep really detailed notes, very, very detailed notes, of all the sexual activity. He writes lots and lots of notes about a man he calls Mr. A. And Mr. A is a businessman who works nearby and engages in what Gerald calls hot sheeting. Hot sheeting. Well, that's hard to say. Hot sheeting is that basically Mr. A would bring young female members of his staff team from his company at lunchtimes to the motel. They would have sex, and he just repeated that pattern over and over. Gerald watched all of these occasions, and he noted what sort of things Mr. A liked to do sexually and the things that he didn't like to do. What positions he liked, what he didn't like, how long it would take him sometimes to come. I mean, it's just insane. This is all in his little notebook. Gerald would masturbate as he watched these encounters. Gerald, man, you absolute filth bag. Get out, come on, what are you doing? So like I said, he would judge guests as they arrived to check in, and what he would do is he would try and work out what kind of sex did he think that they would have, and he would get like really excited about the expectation of what they were actually going to do when they got into the hotel room. Quite often, from his notebook, what you realise is that actually sometimes he was a bit disappointed. So he would check a couple in and think, oh my god, they're going to have the most crazy kind of sex. And then actually he would watch it and go, it's actually just quite ordinary type of sex. Now, this was going on, and did Gerald at any point feel like he might be breaking the law, which he was doing? Did he think that this was morally wrong? Well, he says this: there is no invasion of privacy if those who are being watched remain unaware. What? That's like me saying, right? That's like me saying, well, if I stole something from someone and the person didn't really notice I'd stolen it, then it's not a crime. Yes, it is. Gerald, mate. Gerald, you need to get your ideas sorted. So the motel, it continues to be busy, and for years, Gerald is watching the guests' sexual activity. Now, what does his wife, Donna, think of all of this? Well, she encourages it. She thinks it's great. She reads all of his detailed notes, and she tells him to keep going. Keep watching and keep writing. Sometimes Donna joins him in his viewing attic, and they watch a couple below them in a bedroom have sex, and then they have sex along with the couple in the bedroom. Okay, well, each to their own. They've had the motel now for about 5 years, and Gerald and Donna decide that they're going to start a family, and so they do. They have 2 children. First of all, they have a son, and then they have a daughter. And just to make it even more of a family business, Donna's mother becomes the receptionist of the Manor House motel, and the reason that they need a receptionist is because working on reception is quite frankly taking up way too much of Gerald's time when he should be viewing hotel rooms. So, okay. Over the period of the next few years, Gerald writes notes on married couples, unmarried couples, people having affairs, young people, old people, all forms of culture and countries, all these things that pass through his motel. And he sees everything. He sees all kinds of sex. He sees lots of lesbianism, of which he says, I paid particular attention. Aye, right. I bet you did, Gerald. I bet you did. He says, I also saw many homosexual sexual acts, which I have no interest in whatsoever, but I watched because I was fascinated by the mechanics. Mechanics? What's he talking about? Mechanics? There's nothing mechanical. Are you going on about your fucking nut job? He writes about male and female masturbation habits. In his journal, he goes on to write that he's witnessed a massive increase in threesomes and in group sex. Yes. And it bothered them that sometimes 5 people would come in and ask for a room, and he didn't charge them for, 5 of them being in a room. And that annoyed him. But then, well, it was only really over to him to change that. So, like, if people would, like, book into the hotel and go, oh yeah, the 5 of us just want one room, and he was annoyed he wasn't making more money out of it, well, then you have to speak up. He sees the whole entire spectrum of behaviour, and he describes in his notes the really wide range of emotions that he sees. and all the things that he witnesses over the years as a voyeur. This is a tiny little side story, but it did actually make me laugh when I was researching. Often people would turn up with their pets. So if someone had a dog, he always wanted to pay particular attention to the people in the room who had the dog, because he said dog owners are the worst. They let their dog come into the room and the dog runs about and it pees everywhere and it does its own thing, and it's always causing havoc in the motel. So there's a couple who come and stay and they bring their dog, and their dog does the toilet basically in the room somewhere, and what they do is they cover it up with like a chair. Now he's watching all of this from the attic. He's seeing all of this. And so when the couple go to check out a couple of days later and they ask for their deposit back, he says, no, you can't have your deposit back because your dog made a mess in the room. Now that's a bit of a nightmare, because how would you know that? How would you know that? Right? So what he does is he marches that couple up to their room and he shows them where they've tried to cover up the mess that the dog has made. And they're just looking at him a bit stunned. Like, how do you know that? Like, that's weird. And so anyway, he refuses to give them back their deposit and they leave. And as they're leaving, they're muttering under their breath, well, possibly a maid might have come into the room and seen something. So we'll just have to accept it. We don't get our deposit back. That's fine. But that's a bit dangerous for Gerald. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that, you would think if you had been this expert voyeur for years and you were watching, you wouldn't just expose yourself by being like, by the way, I watched your dog pissing on the carpet, so you're not getting your deposit back. So it continues for Gerald, and he just keeps writing his notes. He keeps masturbating himself as he watches all these couples having sex. He's taking notes of everything, and he sees it, right? This is how he sees it, that he's preserving for the future an idea of sex. He's writing down these things because one day they will help us understand sexual trends in the world. Yeah, Gerald. Now, he's been watching for a long, long time, right? He's been watching for a time. And he's starting to sort of lose his grip on it a little bit. He's starting to lose what he originally thought this was going to be, or what he set out to be. This is, I'm just here to journal, I'm just here to detail what sex is. He actually just starts to, I don't know, I think it's maybe the isolation of it, possibly the kind of, that weird like distance thing of it, where he's just watching people obsessively from a distance. And this story I think is a bit weird. One day, a middle-aged woman turns up at the hotel and asks for a room. And she has with her a 19-year-old guy. And he gives him a room. And as soon as he gives him a room, he runs to his attic position to watch what's about to happen. And when the middle-aged woman and the 19-year-old go into the room, they immediately start having sex on the bed, and at the end of it, she hands him $200. So he is a gigolo, right? Fine. Okay, so this woman has wanted to have sex, and she's brought a gigolo into the room. Now, he must have seen that a lot. It's what he does next, I think, that is really creepy. As the woman comes downstairs to check out and leave the motel, he asks her, where does she live? And she says, well, I don't actually live that far from here. I live quite nearby. And he says, okay, that's fine. So she leaves, And here's what he does. He follows her home. He follows her to her house, and he watches her through the window in her house. And he sees her sitting and crying at her kitchen table. Then he does this. He then starts going round her neighbours, asking, who is this woman? What do you know about her? What can you tell me about her? What are you doing? What are you doing, nosy knickers? It is none of your beeswax who she is. It's none of your fucking business. She came to your hotel, you watched her have sex with a gigolo, now you've followed her home and you're watching her through her window. Are you a fucking mentalist? What's wrong with you? Oh my god. So from talking to the neighbours, what he realises is that the woman is a widow. And that she's very, very lonely. And she's never quite got over the fact that her husband died. So he hears this information and thinks, that's fine. I'll just go back to the motel. And the next time she comes round, I'll know exactly what the story is. Fuck off. Who do you think you are in this situation? It is not your business to be fucking following guests from your hotel home. You creep of creepy creeper face. But of course he goes back to his little book and he writes down all of his little notes. Like I said, I think a lot of that isolation and I think of that obsession with watching people, I think it's still starting to play a bit with Gerald's brain. He starts to just get a little bit controlling in a way that actually is bizarre, because as a voyeur, you have no control. You have no control. You can control, yes, the times you're going to watch and the things you think you're going to watch, but you cannot control what you're watching because it's happening without the people involved's knowledge. So he begins to get really annoyed about stupid things. Things like, well, this couple have been in my motel room for 3 days and they've not yet had sex. Right, well, you can't get annoyed about that, Gerald. You cannot get annoyed. Like, it's not your sex life, it's their sex life. Fuck off. So, like I said, the wheels are beginning to come off a little bit here for Gerald. I think what's happening is, I think he's beginning to take this whole voyeurism, I was just looking at people's sex habits, into what he thinks, I think, is a study of, like, human behaviour. So he devises this system called the honesty test. And this is what he does. He gets a suitcase, right? And he puts a really cheap, easy to break padlock on the suitcase, and he places it in one of the hotel rooms. So when someone checks in and he's going to give them that room where he knows that the cheap suitcase with the flimsy padlock is, he'll, as he's checking them in, say to his wife Donna really loudly, "Oh, we got a call last week and it was from a man who was staying here last week and he thinks that he left $1,000 in cash in a suitcase in the motel. Have you found it anywhere?" To which Donna replies, "No, I've not seen it anywhere." She's fully in on this. There is no $1,000 in a suitcase. It's an empty suitcase with a padlock. Now, he says this in front of the people that are checking in, and he waits to see who will pass his honesty test. So as soon as they're checked into the room, he runs up to his attic to watch and see who will immediately begin searching for that suitcase and who will immediately come in, look for the suitcase and return it to reception. Out of the 15 people that he tries this on, only 2 of them return this to reception, believing that they have found the $1,000 in cash that someone has left. And this is his way to monitor human behaviour. What a fucking weirdo. Like, why are you now putting people through social experiments? That's just odd, isn't it? It's just really odd. And also, I just will say this. If that was me, if I was at a reception and I heard that there potentially might be $1,000 in a suitcase in my motel room, I'd be like, get me to that suitcase. Yeah. He starts to get really annoyed by certain behaviours, and one of the things that Gerald just cannot bear, I mean, he just absolutely cannot bear, is when people have sex under the covers. Because the problem is, if you're going to have sex under the covers, that's rubbish for a voyeur. They can't see anything. They don't know what's going on. So he starts to get really annoyed. So there's a couple that check in one night, and Gerald is really curious to see them have sex. Really, what it comes down to is he is really fancying the woman in the situation. He's really fancying her, and he can't wait to see them have sex. Now, he goes up to his viewing attic. He's looking, and as the man and the woman in the room get undressed, the man turns the lights off. Gerald writes in his journal, "I will not stand for this. Not at all. This is ridiculous." So what he does is, he goes down to the car park. He moves his car. He parks his car right in front of this couple's hotel room, and he turns his lights on in the car so that they are full beam into the bedroom. The couple, they continue to have sex, and he quickly runs back up to his viewing position. And he writes this. The room is lit up really well. Now, the man has begun his animal-like thrusting. After 3 minutes, he immediately withdraws and he departs for the bathroom. I finally get to see her body when she wipes the semen on my bedspread. Oh, Gerald. Oh dear. She is beautifully proportioned, but I can see by her face she is dumb. He comes back from the bathroom and he notes that there is a light shining right into their bedroom. He says, "I wonder what the situation is with the car lights," and then they both fall asleep. So this is what it is for Gerald. He's watching all of these couples, and this is for years now. But things for Gerald are about to turn a bit more serious. He's about to see something which isn't sex, and it's going to throw his whole world of voyeurism into a spin. Okay, so Extraordinary Stories podcast is not a podcast which has adverts on it, as you know. I'm not that guy. I'm just a little guy. I do just want to quickly point out that I am on Patreon with Extraordinary Stories podcast. So I'm just going to play you a little advert from some of the last Patreon episodes. Everyone wants their hands on these 2 photographs. Yes, they are interesting to look at. They are fucking interesting. They really are. This is validation of everything he believes in. And they start developing the pictures that they've taken in the afternoon. Alright, let's this story. Now you are going to think I have gone mad. You'll be like, oh my god, call the doctor. Call the doctor, he's gone insane. That is weird, right? That is fucking weird. I mean, I don't want to say this, but nowadays you'd maybe be getting like some sort of service involved, or you'd be like, okay, do we need to talk to a child psychologist? But I don't know, people just went, oh yeah, it's just their silly sort of fantasy. Elsie's father was an amateur photographer, but this is getting silly now, so can you cut out the nonsense, because I don't want any more of this. It's about to get very strange indeed. Losing his shit. He starts losing his mind, baby. As silly as all of this can sound, right? Yeah, it can sound daft, it can sound ridiculous, but for lots of people, this was real, and now you just look like an idiot. Joe was never the same man again. His whole belief in people was shattered. In one of the rooms in the motel, there's been a couple and they have been staying for over a week. So Gerald is watching them, he's observing them, and he's working out that the guy he thinks is about 28, maybe 29 years old, and is a bit of a small town drug dealer. His girlfriend that he's with is about 21. And, yeah, as is Gerald's wont, without beating about the bush, he really fancies her. He writes in his journal about the size of her boobs. He loves the size of her boobs. And that's his thing. Boobs are big in the game for Gerald. So, he's watching them, he's been watching them for over a week now. And there's a day where he's watching and the guy is in the room on his own. The girl is out somewhere else. And a few people turn up at the door, and it's a few young people who are aged about 15, 16. And they've come to buy some drugs from the man in the room. Well, this sends Gerald into a right furious state. He is livid. He is livid that a drug dealer is dealing drugs from his motel. So he watches this happen, and then once the man has left the motel room, Gerald goes into the room. He finds the rest of the stash of drugs and he flushes the whole thing down the toilet so that there are no drugs left for this man to sell, and he resumes his watching position. When the man comes back, he's desperately looking for his stash of drugs and he can't find it. And he's thinking, where the fuck have my drugs gone? So when the girlfriend, the younger girlfriend, comes back, he accuses her of getting rid of the drugs. He says, you must have got rid of them, or you must have sold them. And she says, no, I haven't a clue. Which is the truth, because we know that Gerald has flushed them down the toilet. But the man will not believe his girlfriend. He says, I know you took those drugs. And the whole thing turns violent. The man grabs her by the neck. He strangles her, and she dies in that motel room. And the only witness to that event is Gerald, watching from the attic. Watching what he has essentially created. Gerald leaves the attic for the night. He doesn't mention it to his wife. He just goes to bed. The following day, a cleaner from the hotel comes screaming down the stairs, shouting, "There is a dead body in one of the rooms." Gerald acts like this is brand new information, and he calls the police. What he's told by police is that the drug-dealing boyfriend was probably using a fake ID and would be really hard to track down. The case of that girl who died in the Manor House Motel was never solved, and the mysterious drug dealer was never found. It just sort of went away. Over the 15 years that Gerald spends watching and noting people down, he sees multiple rapes, he sees sexual exploitation and sex trafficking. What really pisses me off here, what really fucks me off, is that actually he was watching horrific things happening in front of him. Absolutely horrendous. But he was putting his own voyeuristic needs way above the needs of people who were actually in dangerous situations. Instead of doing anything about it, he was actually just watching them. After 15 years of owning the Manor House Motel, Gerald buys a second motel just down the road from the Manor House. And again, he does the same thing. He puts the fake vents into the ceilings. And now he's got 2 motels to watch anyone he wants from. But he still calls. He actually calls it in his journals. Manor House is his voyeurism headquarters. I mean, if that's not a worrying as fuck statement, then I don't know what the hell is. Now, after 40 years of being married to Donna, she passes away. She develops cancer and dies. Now, it doesn't take Gerald too long. He quickly remarries. He remarries a woman called Anita. And Anita is also interested in voyeurism. Where is he finding these people who are into voyeurism? Fucking voyeurism.com. Is there a Tinder out there for people who love voyeurism? So, he remarries Anita, and she's like, yeah, that's fine. I'll come and watch lots of different people have sex with you. I mean, weird. I mean, it's nice, isn't it, really, in a way? Because, you know, I always think if a voyeur is going to watch me, it would really be much nicer if I had 2 sets of eyes watching me rather than just one. Fucking hell. Gerald will say that for years and years, the murder of the young woman in his motel haunted him. And it haunted him because, to all intent and purposes, he had caused it. He was terrified, absolutely terrified, that he would be convicted of second-degree murder, or accessory to murder, or what's the thing when you withhold evidence? What's that? Perjury. No, hang on. No, wait there. Perjury is when you lie to a judge, isn't it? I think. Is it? Yeah, I think it is. Or maybe it's just called withholding evidence. I don't know. Lawyers, get in touch. Someone else that Gerald had told the story to called the Denver police to ask for any kind of trace, any kind of evidence or update on the young woman who died in the Manor House motel. And what they're told is, at that time, no electronic records were kept of anything. So the chances of us ever finding any paperwork are zero. And it'll just have to be chalked up to someone died, someone got away with it, and we'll never know what happened there. As the years go on, Gerald gets older and he finds it more and more difficult to get himself up into his attic to watch the sex below and to study people. And so eventually what he does is he sells off both the motels. He moves to the Rocky Mountains with Anita and he hands the motel over to new owners. So now with lots and lots of time on his hands, he starts a new adventure, and this time what he really wants to get into is what is the Big Brother state of the USA. He becomes fascinated by knowing how the government watch us and track us, and this becomes his brand new line of inquiry. He gets really interested in who's watching us, how are they watching us, where are the cameras, what's CCTV, starts to get really into all of that. Now he's walked away from both of his motels, but what he has is his notebooks. He has all of his notebooks, and in 2016 he decides he wants to do something with them. He wants them to become a thing. He wants something to happen, like they're published or something gets made out of them. I mean, slightly, maybe a bit deluded here. He kind of believes that he's going to sell them to Hollywood and he's going to make millions out of them. Well, no, not really. When he first sort of says, I've got these journals that I've documented, I've watched people, there is a bit of interest. Obviously there's a hell of a lot of raised eyebrows and people going, what now? But there's a few documentaries that will pop up, but there's no major motion pictures at this point for Gerald. So he sells off his books to anyone who's really interested in hearing it, and like I said, there's just a couple of documentaries here and there pop up. At one point I think there was a film deal, an actual Hollywood film deal was in the works, but it never really pans out. The Manor House Motel is bought by a real estate company and it's demolished for land so that houses can be built. Now, Gerald didn't know this when he went to visit in 2018, only to find his precious motel was now just basically a building site, is what it is. He was gutted, absolutely devastated that his precious motel was gone. But he was ready to talk. He was ready to talk about everything that he'd seen in that motel. Why? Because he believed that the statute of limitations had run out on anyone who would want to charge him with invasion of privacy. I don't know, I'm not really sure how that works, to be honest. I'm not really sure how that goes. If you've been spied on by someone 20 years ago, can you do something about it now? I'm not really sure. As for the murder in the hotel room, it still plays on Gerald's brain. But there's nothing that he can really do. He cannot go back in time and change that situation. But if I was Gerald, I would be living forever with the horrible realisation that you caused someone's death. And then, not only did you set into motion the chain of events that would kill that person, you then watched them be murdered. He lives now, an old man, with his wife Anita, and he is continuing to research the government. Of his almost 20 years as a voyeur, Gerald says this. Basically, you can't trust people. Most of them lie and cheat and are deceptive. What they reveal about themselves in private, they try to hide in public. What they try to show you in public is not what they are really like. You will only know a person truly when they think they are alone. And so ends the story. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed that. Yeah, crazy little story. Crazy one, but yeah, good one. I think, yeah, when that came to me, I was like, yep, I think I need to tell this story. It's a good one. Alrighty, okay, so I'm going to get out of here. I am just going to do my usual and say, of course, you can join the Facebook group. Be lovely to see you there. Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, if you want to help the podcast out. That would be bloody marvellous. Yeah, so, until we speak again, look in your ear vents. Make sure no one's watching you. And, you know, if voyeurism is your thing and this has been offensive for you, I'm really sorry. You just keep on watching. keep on being you. Keep on doing what you do in this world. And keep having this, I'll be watching you every step you take, every move you make. I'll be watching you in your head. Okay. Goodbye. That was a bit high. Okay. Goodbye. Oh, that sounds scary. Back to normal voice. Okay. Goodbye. Oh my god, that was boring. Okay. Goodbye. Better.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.